Welcome to the Peak Performance and Peak Satisfaction podcast with Master Executive Coach Sherry Gregoff. Sherry helps business people perform better, get rewarded handsomely, and actually enjoy their work. After having her own career turnaround, she now helps other high-powered business professionals experience the same. Join the movement to work differently.
Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. Maybe you've got a new sheriff in town who has made you her new mark. Maybe you were just offered your dream promotion, but they lowballed your compensation and your new boss says it's out of his control. Before you hit the eject button on your role because of your manager, listen to this episode to make an educated and unemotional decision on your next move. Before we jump in, I want to shout out one of my clients who had a win in this area. Here's the quote from him. I have been asked to report directly to my previous manager's leader and to take on an expanded scope of role. I'm glad now that I didn't put too much stock in the fact that my manager didn't like to give me constructive feedback to grow and didn't like to make suggestions to do things differently to his leadership. I was able to excel anyway by focusing on what was in my control. This client had a manager who didn't give him constructive feedback. Any input was laced with recency bias, passing along casually shared feedback without investigating it. This manager also did not relay difficult feedback to his leader either. Nonsensical processes that demoralized the team and wasted precious resources continued unchanged as the manager didn't want to rock the boat. My client enjoyed having the listening ear in his manager, but realized that any input shared stopped there. As time went on, he was approached more frequently by his manager's leader to touch base and hear the input that wasn't passed along. While this dynamic felt underwhelming to my client, in the end, his manager decided to leave the company. This became an opportunity for my client to take a broader scope and assume more of his previous manager's responsibilities. Now he would be reporting directly to that previous manager's leader. Hasty frustration with the old dynamic might have sent my client looking for a better situation elsewhere or a more supportive and vocal manager. Hindsight is 20/20, of course, but in this case, having some patience and carrying on doing his best work and sharing his input directly with key stakeholders made this manager a non-issue in my client's career development. His manager's shortcomings or lack of engagement ended up becoming his opportunity to advance. His cool head prevailed, and by not letting this partnership with his manager limit him, he was able to grow his impact anyway. Similar victories are shared by all of my clients, and I have experienced it too in my own career turnaround. So let's hop to today's podcast content and get you on your way to experiencing this also. Difficult bosses. We have all been there. If you haven't, hats off to you. If you've only had leaders and mentors who have had your back and taught you a ton, I salute you. Chances are, at some point, you may encounter what feels like a difficult boss. Admittedly, at times, we can be quick to jump to the conclusion that our boss has it out for us. There can be a sentiment more generally against having to report to someone else who is meant to direct you. It's said that we don't leave companies, we leave bosses. It's not always the case, but it can be common to see our leader as the reason for our dissatisfaction. We may work for a wide variety of profiles whom we may find difficult reporting to. Today, I am sharing how to handle the nightmare boss, how to manage them, and when to leave. If your manager has got you feeling a certain kind of way, it's time to critically evaluate your next move. It may be inside the same role with a new approach, elsewhere at the company, or somewhere new altogether. Given all these sentiments in play, and the fact that any time you work in business and are not the CEO or business owner, you will have a leader to work for. So let's investigate this dynamic further. I've gathered a set of scenarios, an inventory of profiles of difficult bosses, each based on real-life situations. In each one, I'll offer different perspectives before you decide to remain working for that leader to turn around the relationship or to look elsewhere. Sound like a plan? Let's get into it. First up, the micromanager. Micromanagers are usually born from being under pressure to deliver and not knowing any better way to get the collective job done than to carefully micromanage their team members in excruciating detail. A friend's new boss was almost terminated in her last role, but then received a lifesaver bid from another group. That turn of events has put her under tremendous pressure to earn her right to stay. This micromanaging with an iron fist was born from her top priority of self-preservation. In this situation, it's important to get grounded in the common objective that the two of you have, the team's success. Create compelling proposals on how to better divide and conquer to have the most impact. If the boss needs transparency, determine how to provide it without compromising the objective. By sharing ideas for a different way of working together, gauge the response to see how the partnership might evolve or whether there is zero bid for a more positive dynamic. If you conclude that the micromanaging is actually due to a lack of faith that you are or can be the right person for the job, and it's clear that your fate is sealed, it's time to start actively identifying and pursuing your other options. Who wants to stay in a role where they are not wanted? You can find a better fit where everyone feels aligned. The second profile is the emotional and political decision maker. Unless we are the CEO or business owner, we may act like an owner, but we are not the ultimate owner. Decisions may be made that we disagree with on strategy, people, and prioritization. So what do? Disagree and commit is often referenced, but can feel like an internal battle daily. Our performance may decline if we aren't truly bought in. I find this analogy to be a useful reframe of the situation. Consider the country in which you are currently living. You have made a decision to live there and not to move somewhere else, at this moment anyway. You may disagree with how the country is run, policies, or even personalities in power. If you torment yourself daily on all the ways in which you are not aligned with the leadership of your country, you will drive yourself mad. Instead, it is important to re-underwrite your decision and then to commit to controlling what you can. You may live in a country because you feel it is the best option available. We can accept that it is still imperfect. We can live each day with an optimism, making an effort to create positive change within our sphere of influence, but ultimately at peace with our decision to choose the best, however imperfect, option. Working at a company is similar. You may not agree with the decisions made at the top. You may not get along with the personality of your leader. You may also think this role is the best one for you. So you show up with a high intent to excel, contribute, and you speak up to influence the success of the company. But then you also release the reins on decisions made away from you. We engage, but also detach. Remember that everyone around you, including that boss, is doing the best they can with what they have and what they know at this time. No one wants to sink the ship intentionally. So channel empathy for your leader and decide to sink or swim together as part of that company, or make the decision that you want to work somewhere else with a different strategy. Know that the grass may seem greener, but some aspects of working within a large organization can be fairly consistent. Make this decision eyes wide open after doing your research on your alternatives to choose the best relative option for you. Profile number 3 is the rule follower. Some managers prioritize rule following. If the top-down direction is to cut costs or change directions again, or have too many concurrent priorities to be feasible, some managers will do everything to comply and please their leaders. Others will have the credibility and boldness to push back on rules for exceptions. This applies to a great many examples. The top-down direction may be to limit the size of a compensation increase within a single year, or based on bands assigned to a corporate title. Maybe the norm is a minimum number of years in a corporate title before promotion. These stated and unsaid rules are often applied to ensure we aren't making emotional decisions to reward and recognize our high performers in a way that will put the company at risk or inadvertently hurt their long-term career. But know that these arbitrary rules were made to be broken, and often are broken in the name of meritocracy, to give credit where it is due and recognize growth at a faster trajectory than most. If you get stuck under a manager who hasn't received this memo, you may find yourself being awarded a larger scope of role, but without the commensurate pay or title. This could be because they are following the norms and general direction without feeling comfortable to push back as rule followers, in which case you need to decide if you are willing to wait for the pace of trajectory that's by the book. It's a gut check of how important it is to you. Even if you decide to wait it out, I suggest you advocate for yourself and mark their card with your interest. Alternatively, this decision on their part could be them evaluating your performance and deciding that it is not worthy of being an exception. They may blame the rule or a different leader because they don't want to own up to having made the decision that contradicts your wishes. The best we can do here is to ask questions to better understand their perspective, to know whether it is indeed the latter case, so that you get a hold of the constructive feedback for you to improve your chances going forward of getting the recognition that you're after. Profile number 4 is the people pleaser. It's a similar but slightly different nuance in the manager who likes to people please and minimize noise in all directions. This often shows up as not delivering critical feedback to their team, but also not funneling critical feedback upwards. The preference by the manager here is not to rock the boat. They may be driven by being close to retirement and not wanting to put their employment or their own standing at risk. That's just one scenario. Or maybe they have one foot out the door and don't want to invest the energy to drive change given their own plans. This profile usually sets the manager up for being cut out or worked around as a result. You may find their leader coming directly to you and bypassing them altogether. It may have you scratching your head to see what purpose they serve, other than to buffer between levels. In this case, you can use this as an opportunity to just keep being you, leading, providing critical feedback to improve things in all directions. You can choose to trust that your work will distinguish you and that things will work out according to your efforts and impact, regardless of how long that manager remains in their role above you. Profile number 5 is the mark maker. Maybe you realize that with this new sheriff in town, you are their mark. This new hire, who took the role that maybe you even interviewed for. Maybe you were so close to getting it. Maybe you filled that role on an interim basis, and then this person was selected over you. You may have made the decision to swallow your pride and commit to doing everything you could to help that new manager be successful in the role. To your dismay, you realize that you are their next hit, a threat to be eliminated. All the positive feedback, positive interviewing, and even success performing that role on an interim basis doesn't count for much after you have become their next target. If this happens, it's time to leave with grace. Take the experience of performing that role on an interim basis and use it to find your next job, remembering exactly what you were capable of before this new objective to eliminate threats came into the picture. And no hard feelings are necessary. The Godfather quote, "It's nothing personal, it's just business," is what comes to mind. A new manager may think they must shake things up to warrant their existence and claim their territory from any potential backup plans who could quickly replace them. It's a matter of self-preservation. Rather than ruminating on how this panned out, get to work finding your next opportunity, which is sure to serve you better. And if a severance package was offered, consider your last company the funder of your next career move. Profile number 6 is the bureaucratic boss. Companies can get bureaucratic. It happens to the best of us. Usually after experiencing growth and success, there can be a movement to cling to that success with white knuckles. It can start to feel like hanging on to a position rather than aiming for aggressive growth. Defense rather than offense. But you might be the hunter who loved when hypergrowth was the sole priority. Administrative tasks created with the best of intentions may now be inadvertently crowding out the very activities that created the success. You can fight the Fed respectfully and in a way that lands with your leader for the benefit of your immediate ecosystem. Determine how to make things more efficient so every box gets checked, but without tanking the success or growth of the organization. There's always a happy compromise available here. But it may take negotiating to get there. And even with that compromise, it may be farther toward the other end of the spectrum from where you want to be. Only you can decide whether that gap is enough for you to leave. Consider that large organizations often come with a tax, and the dynamic might be similar at the mature company next door. Weigh the cost-benefit and choose to show up daily or not. Profile number 7 is the snap judge, who can't evolve their view past the verdict that they already reached, and maybe in record time. Some leaders make snap judgments about the future potential of a team member that can be hard to shake. Whether the recipient of this dynamic is you or team members that you look after, this can make it challenging to feel grounded and secure enough to add value or lead a team. The perspective shift here is to find sufficiency in yourself, knowing that if the wind blows a certain way and you fall out of favor and are asked to leave, that your skills and experiences are valuable and will make you marketable to find your next amazing opportunity. This mindset can take some work to establish if you've been at this company for a long time or are used to seeing it as the source of your security and safety. Embracing the concept of employment at will is possible, and I help people do it all the time. The aspect of leading a team through this dynamic presents its own unique challenge, and that you may not be on board with terminations that you are asked to make. I have coached clients through this as well. It can be uncomfortable to deliver a verdict that you disagree with, of course. But the bottom line here is that you want this team member to be successful, to feel they belong, and to be valued. Even if you value them, if this manager is not a buyer and has made it clear that that person needs to leave, the kind thing to do is to respectfully set them free to explore other roles that will be a better fit and where they will be wanted and valued. This is the key to finding peace with conveying a termination of a team member that you yourself would rather stay. In both instances, in finding peace with the manager who makes snap judgments, is finding a healthy level of detachment. You are not your manager, but rather you are two distinct individuals. You don't have to beat yourself up for decisions that they made against your wishes. If you used your voice and created the most compelling case for your view that you could, then it's time to accept that it is their decision to make. After expressing why you disagree and your logic-based case for why a colleague should not be written off, if this manager refuses to change their view, your only choice is to let it go. Once again, if this is something that you decide is just not worth it, explore your other options and make the best choice for you. Profile number 8, the manager who lacks empathy. This manager may seem like they are missing a gene that makes them a bit less human. They may seem to lack the ability to care about the well-being of their people. This can show up as they rely on one part of the business to hold up another, or they give opportunities to people who are like them, or to those who are always willing to scratch their back, agree with them, turn a blind eye to bad behaviors, or to do them a favor. This manager may temper the degree to which successes of their own people are shared more broadly to not let them get too big for their britches. They may consistently be low on the care quotient for medical issues encountered or bereavement. What a list. Let's turn back towards our part in this equation. The truth is, we don't need the support and care of our leader, but boy, does it make things more pleasant. Sometimes managers prioritize managing up, and those down from them in the organization may be having a very different experience. Having a leader who can manage up well can be useful, but only if you can get them to share the wealth with you. There may come a time when how they manage down overshadows all the benefits and things that you love about your work. The good news is that you always get to decide. Know your options. Make the best decision for you given the imperfect information that you have. So those were just 8 manager profiles that come to mind from recent work with clients and a couple of situations that friends have found themselves in. While each situation can be a bit different, there are some consistent principles that you can reference, even if your current manager is a fantastic leader whom you admire and look up to. The mindset that is most helpful from what we covered today is the one produced by a detachment detox. The analogy was living in a country where you feel like an enemy of the government. You may not agree with all policies or personalities, but only you can decide whether this is the best place to live. We can make our leader or leadership out to be public enemy number 1. It's a stereotype that is reinforced quite a bit in our society, a resistance to authority, and a boss fits that bill for sure. If you feel like it might be a deal breaker, evaluate whether your work or your company is net positive or negative to the world or humanity. Maybe this isn't as important as you thought because of what the work affords you. If you decide to stay, release what is out of your control so that it can't aggravate you or sour you on a daily basis. Show up with your best intent to make a positive impact, but then release the reins on the outcome or the direction of the company overall. Put down the burden of carrying the impact of things you can't control. If you decide to leave, know that those folks you left behind, they were doing their best. No hard feelings, just no longer a fit for you. It's time to be on to your next adventure. The strategy here is to always do what you know is right and to pause before responding. So anytime that you think you must react a certain way to a behavior, decision, or action taken by your manager, remember my words to you now. You get to choose. I've seen it described as a codependent relationship where we kind of get in a rut. We may think that the other person is directing all of our movements like a puppet master, directing what we do, where we land. They are the cause, and the effect is how we feel and what we think, our actions and outcomes. But that linkage is not real. We have the power to choose how we respond. We are always free to decide what happens next. We can choose what we make a single person's behaviors and actions mean about us and our situation. It takes discipline and skill to recognize and act on this. This single perspective shift and skill may be the most valuable to adopt for successfully managing up. There's far more in our control than we give ourselves credit for. Now you may say, Sherry, you don't understand. This manager calls me every Saturday morning wanting to catch up on what we didn't get to during the week. You might think that to keep your job, you have to clear your personal schedule to have that lengthy conversation every Saturday morning when your manager calls, and that you have no other option. In the moment, that feels so very true and accurate. But as I lay it out for you here, without the high level of emotions that come when you're in the situation itself, you may realize that there are many other ways to respond to that action. You could suggest a different meeting time. You could explain why that time is not ideal for you. You could choose not to pick up the phone. You could proactively schedule one-on-ones on Friday afternoon as a preemptive strike. The possibilities are endless. Our creativity is only sparked here to find the many possible ways to respond that feel more aligned for us and more constructive when we first realize that we have options. We don't have to react in kind or automatically or by default. This helps to keep our relationships, and the key relationship of that with our manager, in perspective and in its rightful place. We don't need our manager to act a certain way for us to be successful or for us to experience satisfaction. It sure can help, but it's not a prerequisite. One of my clients has seen a revolving door of managers within the last 12 months. Key objectives for the year have been redefined 3 times within the year itself. And still, there is opportunity to be the calm in the storm, to seize the opportunities created by so much churn and turnover. Sometimes it's these very crises that present tremendous windows to make massive impact. Question all assumptions, including that you have to stay or that you have to go, including that you need a manager to be your trusted guide or a caring ear. The more senior we get as we progress through our careers, the less mandatory having comfort from an outstanding leader there to guide and reassure us becomes. At some point, it's our turn to become that fantastic leader and to create the comfort for our people, even amidst massive change, even when personalities can feel difficult or views can contradict. It becomes our time to lead, even when our manager isn't all we hoped they would be, or isn't the inspiring sage or empathetic visionary that our last manager was. We can step up anyway. We can create dream careers despite it. We can own the decision to leave a manager and leave a company for a better opportunity. We can remember that through it all, we are the constant, and we've got everything we need to create what we want. Now, if this feels stretchy, and if your nightmare boss has got you down on a daily basis, do not do this alone. Get the support you need to start loving your work again. Watch the impact that support and the changes you make have on your career, your business, and your life, your health, and your personal relationships. There is nothing more valuable and nothing more important. Schedule your work-life audit now, and let's get you on your path to a better daily experience right away. Until next time.
Looking for support in applying the principles and strategies in today's episode? Sherry coaches clients one-on-one as their trusted confidant and advisor, helping each client create the work and life they had only dreamed of. To schedule your complimentary career strategy session, go to sherrygregoff.com/apply to book time with her today. It's one simple step that can change everything.